I'd like to call this February 10th regular council meeting to order. Would everybody please stand and salute the flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Want to do roll call, please?
Mr. Gerard.
Present.
Mr. Devine. Mr. Present.
Here.
Ms. Cohen.
Here.
Ms. Rodriguez.
Here.
Mr. Gorman.
Present.
Mr. Quattrochi.
Present.
Mr. Di Giuseppe.
Here. Okay, before we get started with our regular meeting, I would like to introduce tonight, we're honored to have him here, our newly elected Bucks County Commissioner, Bob Harvey.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, members of council, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate you giving me a little bit of your time tonight. I've been making the rounds throughout the county over the past couple of weeks, introducing myself in places where they don't know me as well, and also talking about some county business. One of the things that I wanted to do when I talked about when I was running, it's one of my goals as a commissioner, is to improve the relationship between the county and the municipalities. As a supervisor in Falls Township for 16 years, I know firsthand we had very little contact with the county. And that was something that kind of bothered me. I felt like that was a gap in how the residents of this county should be served. And so I think there's ways that we can help each other. To want to make sure the lines of communication are open. And so this is one of the things I wanted to do. There's a few things I wanted to speak about, but obviously I know the sort of the biggest issue, the one that's concerning most people, is the St. Anne's polling place. So I wanted to give you a little bit of background on that. I can start out by telling you that St. Anne's will not be moving. We are going to be keeping it where it is this year, and I'm hoping to keep it there. I think Councilman Di Giuseppe and I have been talking a lot over the past week, and we have a good game plan together on how to pursue this, and even working with Commissioner DiGirolamo, Commissioner Marseglia. A couple of years ago, the Catholic Church decided to start charging insurance for any polling place that was used. Montgomery County immediately stopped using archdiocesan properties because they didn't want to pay the insurance. For the record, when you use a location for a polling place, you pay a state-mandated $75 fee. It's a school, it's a senior center, firehouse, everybody gets the same. There isn't any other entity that charges counties for using their locations as a polling place. The decision was made at the our county level to sort of, kind of move the polling places. There are about 5 municipalities that are affected, obviously including Bristol, all over the county. That decision was never really followed through on, and so it became an issue again. Obviously, with the early primary election in April, that became an issue for us to deal with. The news story yesterday talked a lot about it. The county has tried over the past, in the past last couple of years, not before, obviously before I came on, to try and work out a deal with the Archdiocese where the county would actually cover insurance for any of those properties, add them as on a rider for our policy, and the Archdiocese has refused. And so not really something I understand. We're working, putting a plan in place. I'm actually going to be asking for your help as a council, to lend your weight to the arguments that we have. I've already started soliciting the support of the chairman of the Bucks County Democratic Committee, Commissioner DiGirolamo, speaking to the chairwoman of the Republican Committee here in Bucks County. We're going to be working with Warwick Township as well, because they're another community. Their church, St. Cyril's, is really kind of the only real big polling place they have. It's kind of ideal, so moving it is a problem, and they're trying to raise some private funds to do that. And that's one of the things I think it shouldn't be necessary to do. So we're hoping we can work with the Archdiocese, and we're hoping we can ask or count on you to lend your support for our efforts to get the Archdiocese to really kind of change their policy, that we don't have to deal with this anymore. And we want to keep things where they are. We want to try and do what's best for the residents all over the county. And I know, as I said, Councilman Debbie and I have had a lot of conversations about this, and I hope that we can, I think we got a good game plan. I think we can move forward on that. So for this year, everything stays to the status quo, and I know that makes the people here happy, and it makes all of us happy. So that's the first piece of news. So,
Thank you.
yeah.
I think, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. I was really upset when I heard it because our polling place is up at the high school, and we have so much, that's the largest
Right.
area of voters,
Right.
the most voters come out. And I couldn't see how it would work there. So I feel that, that's going to be a problem. And I hope that this isn't just a Band-Aid that's going on this year, because, I know that Father Mooney is fine with paying the $600 for
Right.
it. So, I'm just saying, I'm hoping it's not a Band-Aid,
I'm hoping
because
so too.
next
Really.
year will be,
Yeah, I'm hoping so too. And so I'm
okay.
hoping we all can as I said, we're all pulling on the same oars and moving in the same direction. I think we can hopefully get the Archdiocese to change their mind and come up with a better solution. Because in my opinion, Father Mooney shouldn't have to be putting out that money. I mean, there's obviously other needs the two churches have that he could be using that money for, especially when no one else is charging. So that's the first piece of news. The other piece of news, just to let you know, obviously we have new voting machines. The county, toward the end of 2019, purchased new voting machines as was required by state law. The voting machines are already coming in, hundreds and hundreds of them, and so we're looking very, very good to have everything in place, which obviously we need to have in place by April. We do have a special election in Salem to fill Commissioner DiGirolamo's spot. That's in May, so that's going to be a trial run for us with these new machines. These are voter-marked paper ballot machines. Essentially, being the school teacher, for me, it's just going back to, kind of telling people you're going back to school. You're filling in the little bubbles on the sheet, and then you're putting it into the machine. It's very simple. The machines are about the size of like a desktop printer, basically, you might have at your house. And you're going to get a ballot. It's going to have everybody's name on it. That's a candidate, little bubbles. You'll be given a pen to color in whoever you want. You'll take it over to the machine and put it in the machine. The machine will take it in. If everything looks fine, and I'll explain that in a second, the machine will give you a little green sort of screen. It's something like that that'll say, do you want to cast your ballot? You say yes. Ballot's cast. The paper ballot sort of shoots into the back of a canvas bag, and it's kept, obviously, and then you're done. If there's a problem, you'll get a notice for that. And really the only problem you're going to have would be if, for example, if you have 2 people or 3 people running for school board and you vote for 4. The machine will read that and say you voted for too many people, and you'll get a warning so that you'll be able to get that ballot back, change it, and then vote again and have it count correctly. So it's a very, very simple device. The very first training, the county staff is going to be doing some demonstrations of the machines. The very first demonstration is going to be on the 24th of this month at the tech school in Farrell's Hills. It's from 5 to 8. Anybody can go. They can see the machine, how it operates. They'll actually give you paper ballots. You can practice yourself and just see how it works. And so that's the
What was that date?
24th.
First of all, congratulations. It's good to see you back in town, and as Commissioner Harvey, we're all very happy for you.
Thank you.
Secondly, I want to congratulate you guys for listening. Because it is just looking at what happened in Iowa just a couple of weeks ago. You hear a lot of the stories of they were being told that people just weren't listening, and I think that's an important thing. But on that note, I do have a question about. Will there be any changes in the way in which the results are communicated to the county or to this, to county?
There's going to be a delay, and that's one of the changes. There's a lot of changes involved, and there was a new law called Act 77, which was passed by Harrisburg, that included not just the paper ballot machines, but a lot of changes in election law. One of them is you can apply for an absentee ballot, just like always. It's going to be a paper ballot. It's going to look identical to the one you're going to get at the polls on Election Day. You mail it back, just like normal, nothing different. That's the same. But that paper ballot, it will not go to the local polling place. Those that work inside the polls and you know, as candidates, you know that you count the machine totals, and then you have the absentee ballots to go through. All absentee ballots will go to the county. Now, the obvious implication, the obvious issue is that for close elections, you're going to have to wait until the county goes through and processes all those absentee ballots. Now, the machine the county has purchased is really sort of an industrial strength scanner, different than the one that is in each of the polls. That can go through, it's based on the same technology that banks use to count money. You put the cash in, it rattles through it, and same process. And so it's going to be scanning. So it's going to be faster. It's not going to be one person sitting there with every absentee ballot. It's not what it is. It is much faster, but it is still going to cause a delay in terms of when it's reported. That's a state mandate. That's a state law.
And we'll still get that list so that if a candidate, if someone else has an issue with a name on that list, that it can be either challenged or someone decides that they're going to come in and vote instead of their absentee.
Right.
You know how those things go.
That
too.
is right. And the other change is, Councilman President, the other change is what's called you can get a mail-in ballot. Now, everyone's asking the question, what's the difference? And it doesn't seem to be all the difference. No one always seems to understand why Harrisburg did this. But you can apply for an absentee ballot, and you have to give a reason. You're going to be in a town, you're ill, something like that. You can request a mail-in ballot, which is essentially the same thing. You don't have to give a reason for why you want it. So a lot of states in the country do mail-in ballots. People don't go to polls. You get the ballot mailed to you. Every voter gets a ballot mailed to them, they fill it out, or they don't fill it out, and they mail it back, and it's done. Here you're requesting to do a mail-in. It's been, I've been hearing a lot from people like nurses, police officers who work 12-hour shifts, who are saying, well, I can't get to the polls, there's no way. I'm at work at 7, I don't get, or I can't get there. And so this is sort of with them in mind. People that aren't sure about their schedule, work schedule, this helps them. People that just feel like, if I can do it from home, why go out?
So that ballot gets mailed back too?
That same thing, same process.
And how do you, like Greg said, how do you challenge all this stuff?
Well, you will have the one difference. I'm hoping I'm getting this right, because it's, like I said, we're all
You don't have to
still
give us an
digesting.
answer right now, but
Now, one of the things is if you apply for a mail-in ballot, as you probably know, you apply for an absentee ballot.
mail-in or absentee?
Right, either one. You apply for what's in the old way, you apply for an absentee ballot. If you showed up at the polls, you could still vote.
Right.
They would just know to not count your absentee. With this, that now has changed. It's now what's called a provisional ballot. So if you applied for a
Right.
mail-in ballot, you now can only vote by provisional, and they hold that because they don't know if you actually sent it in. They
Right.
don't want you voting twice. It should be lists generated by the county in terms of, so you know who's applied for an absentee, who's applied for mail-in. You should also be able to see who's returned it and who hasn't.
Right.
So that if you know that, Michael Gorman applied for a mail-in ballot, but he hasn't returned it yet, you can go sort of, he didn't forget to turn it in.
But the thing is, when the polls close,
Right.
you have these absentee ballots, and
Right.
the judge of election says, Greg Pezza, and I say I want to challenge Greg Pezza's vote. That gets put in a basket.
Right. The book,
No, it doesn't get counted. How do you do that at the end of the night with,
because the book that you have, the book that everybody signs in on is going to have indicated in it, this person applied for an absentee ballot or mail-in ballot.
And send it back.
And so, right, so when you go to sign your name, it's so wait, you applied for an absentee ballot. And so now they're going to go to provisional. In terms of challenging,
challenging?
I'll have to look at that, I'm not sure.
That's the question I
Yeah.
have.
Yeah, we'll have to find that out. But that's a good question.
We'll talk.
Yeah. The other thing which is good for people, the new process, you can actually request both ballots, spring and fall, at one time. You can fill out right now, request for an absentee or a request for mail-in right now, and request it for both elections. So if you know someone who's homebound, who can't get out to vote, or maybe they were to travel a lot, they can fill out one form now. The spring ballot will be mailed to them, they mail it back. They don't have to apply again for the fall. They're already on the books to get one.
To get, right.
Right, so we think that's going to be a benefit too. The state anticipates fewer people coming to vote in person. Now, that may happen in the future. I don't think that's going to happen this year, the first time we're doing this. I don't think that's going to be the case. Potentially in the future, it might work that way. The other major change is there is no more straight party voting. So you can't just bubble in, one party, and that counts for everybody. You have to vote if you want to vote everybody in a party, you got to vote everybody in the party. So that's a change,
Right.
that's a major change. So, but as I said, we are going to push out I'll do a plug for our Board of Elections, their Facebook page. They've been putting a lot of information on the Facebook page, Bucks County Board of Elections. So I encourage you to like that page. Hopefully you can also do some links with your website and the county website. We're asking people to do that too, communities to do that. There will be some instructional videos going on in a matter of a week or so, so people can see how to actually use the ballot. The videos are very short because it really is very simple. It really is very, very easy. So, yes?
So,
Instructions for the people that are, will be doing the actual operation of these
Yes.
machines. Is there going to be,
Training started this past weekend. The very first training of the poll workers, yes, the judges, elections, machine operators, inspectors, that training, there's going to be training from now through April. We're into early April by the Board of Elections staff. It's going to be either at the Upper Bucks, Lower Bucks, or main Bucks County Community College campus. And so that, they should have already gotten letters from the Board of Elections about that.
I'm sure that, I know there's a lot of polling places in Bucks County, relative to help on that day. Will there be help at, in the polling places, or is it just
We
call
are
the election
trained-
board and?
Yeah, that's going to largely stay the same in terms of the process. If you have a problem, here's the phone number to call. That was the first wave of training that happened. That happened a couple weeks ago. Really, as I was coming in, I think my first week in office, I sat in training for 3 hours with Board of Election staff because they were learning about the machines and all the other people who have to learn about the machines. The technicians who are employed by the county who are used to fixing the other machines now have to learn about fixing these machines. So these machines have been used before. They're used in quite a few counties. Lycoming County has them. I think Monroe County has them. They do a lot of business. It's a Boston company. They have a lot of counties in Ohio, out west. They do a lot of this. This is not their first rodeo in terms of doing this, but
Thank you.
not to interrupt you.
right.
Like Greg asked earlier, he's running for an election at the end of the night. Is there a tape that comes out of these machines,
Yes.
or?
Yep.
So the
It's gonna
judge of
look-
election will still read
Yes.
whatever totals that are on that machine?
Yeah, that's going to look the same as the machines we just got rid of. They're just like a receipt you get at the
The only thing you
supermarket.
won't know is the absentee ballots are staying in, which is going to be quicker because everybody's going to get out of here faster.
Right. So the mail-in, if, how much, depends on how much mail-in we get, and the absentees. That's what's going to slow it down. But that's the state.
Well,
that's
Greg
the state
usually gets
law.
100 and some absentees.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to have to work. Yeah. So and then again, it's a state law, so it's not a county policy.
Right.
That's just the state law, which says all absentees and mail-ins have to go to the county seat. So we are going to also look to allow, and we have to figure out the staffing on this, allow people to come and do in-person voting early at the Lower Bucks office. I don't know if that's going to be ready by the spring. But that's also a part of the law, is you can actually go early and say, well, I want to vote now, it's a month before the election, I'm not going to be here.
Wow.
And you can actually just vote then, and it's kept. As of right now, we'll try and figure out how to work that at the Lower Bucks office. The previous administration didn't really staff the Lower Bucks office the way I feel they should have been, and so it's one of the things we're having to deal with is budget space issues at that Lower Bucks. I keep saying campus, I'm confusing. The Lower Bucks County office, the one at 5 Points. So I'd like to make that office a full-fledged county office. You can do everything there. Right now, you
That'd
can't.
be great.
I think that's a
Michael.
problem. So,
Michael, okay.
So a question I have is, you had mentioned that, not to put you on the spot, but you had mentioned that you could vote for the next election, like for. Not, but you could cast, yeah.
you could apply for, you could apply for the ballot to come to you. So instead of filling out an absentee ballot application now for April, and then fill out another absentee ballot application in August for November, you're filling out one application. You can just do one election at a time if you want. If you know you're not going to be here in the spring, but you'll be here in the fall, fine. But if you wanted to just check that box to get both of them on the list to be mailed to you at the appropriate times, it's one form and you're done.
So I guess they have guidelines though, what if, for instance, things change, you move, you're not in the camp?
Right. Yeah, I mean, that's obviously, that's one of the wrinkles if something unexpected happens, you're not here anymore, the ballot's going to be mailed to somebody and they're not going to be there anymore. So that's, it's a good question. No one's asked that yet. We're going to find out the answer for that.
That's what I mean, I didn't want to go there, but.
Right, yeah,
God
no,
forbid, what if
yes,
you die or you
right.
just move or you.
Right. Yeah, I mean,
No.
Employee.
obviously, right, exactly, yeah. So,
Oh, go ahead.
no, I had one other sort of
Go ahead.
topic to get to, but the other thing I want to talk to you about, just real briefly, and ask for your help on. This is, 2020 is a year for the census. And we are asking everybody to help with this. I will let you know, I went to a meeting last week in Montgomery County with the Census Regional Bureau to talk about the plan in place for southeastern Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania, there was a study done after the last census, after the 2010 census. There was a study done that found that Pennsylvania lost more federal tax dollars than any other state in the country except Texas because of an undercounted population. Tens of millions of dollars of federal funds for education, for housing, for senior citizens, for people in economic distress that we didn't get because it wasn't a good enough job done counting the residents of the Commonwealth. The estimate is somewhere around $2,000 of federal aid is lost for every one person who's not counted. So with that being said, there obviously is a very big push to get everybody on the same page in terms of doing this. You should have received, the manager should have received some information from the Bucks County Planning Commission. They're kind of the point on persons on dealing with the census and helping with the census. The League of Women Voters is also helping. They are looking for census workers, people who, it's flexible hours, the pay is something like $27 an hour.
Yep.
Plus mileage, and they're looking for people just to go around and do the count, go just door to door, house to house, go to senior centers, go to different places, and just let people know about the census. I will tell you that Bristol, Levittown, I asked, are we covered with census workers, and I was told no, that there were areas of the county that did not have enough census workers right now. One was in the Sellersville area, way up in the northern part. The area around New Hope did not have enough. And Bristol Levittown does not have enough people to do a count. And so if you know people, younger people or any people of any age, retired people who are interested in, having a part-time job that pays very well, and obviously helps us as a county, helps you as a community, make sure we get an accurate count. That's a very, very big deal. I'm kind of taking the lead on that from the three commissioners to make sure we do the best job we can. They are worried about specifically people that get undercounted, the homeless population, immigrants, people who don't have access to the internet, the elderly. And so those are groups that, all over the county that people are focusing on. But if you can emphasize that the line they're using is 10 minutes, 10 questions. That's what it takes to do the census. And the information is private. Anybody that does any kind of genealogy or family research knows that the census information isn't really released till 70 years after the census is taken. So I do a lot of family history, and I have the census for the Tosti family in 1940. I don't have any census. The census information for the Tosti family in 1950 will come out this year. So my mom will show up for the first time on that list. So that's but that's just an idea. So any help you can get, again, using your channel, using your website, just word of mouth, letting people know that the census is looking for people to work. It's very easy to get to. I said the Planning Commission, Bucks County Planning Commission has that information on their website, so hopefully you can link that to your website here. Okay? That's it. I took up a lot of your time, more time than I wanted. I apologize.
Just before you leave,
Sure.
to get back to this polling place,
Sure.
and like I said, I'm glad that we could work this out, and I'm confident in the future.
Yeah.
It's never
I
going
am
to
too.
change.
Yeah.
And I want to thank Father Mooney for,
Yes.
standing up for this and saying, he wants to keep the polling place at St. Anne's because people have been voting there. I know I've been voting there for 46 years. So I know there's people voting there 50, 60 years.
Yeah.
And to take it out of a walking district
Right.
would be, detrimental, I think, to the voters. But again, I want to thank you, and I'm confident in the future that this will never be an issue again.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
thank
I-
Gene and Diane for their help.
Yeah, thank you. And I actually forgot something. I wanted to congratulate, in case you weren't aware, one of the first things we did as the county commissioners was appoint Councilman Gorman to the Bucks County Visitors Bureau. I thought it was very important to have somebody from Bristol on the Visitors Bureau. So, and we actually just at our last meeting appointed another name you'll know. Dr. Brodus Davis was appointed as a trustee of the Bucks County Bucks County Community College. So he was named to that, and so he was thrilled about that. And so he's, I think they meet this week, so I think he'll do his first meeting this week. So,
Great.
okay. So.
All right, Bob,
thank you.
thanks for coming in.
I got to run, so I apologize for leaving. But thank you very much.
Okay, anybody on this side of the room want to speak on anything public participation? No? End of public participation. Joe, you have anything? Mayor?
Yeah, just a couple of quick things. Just a reminder, as I said last Monday at the meeting, about the career night that the AOC and the school district are going to be sponsoring at Snyder Girardi Elementary School, March 26, 6:30 to 8:30 p.m. 8:30 p.m. Meet the businesses, local leaders, college representatives, resumes suggested, job opportunities, a possibility, and looking to have quite a few vendors to be involved with this, and the borough is going to participate itself. Also, as I have done in the last couple months, just want to let you know, last month the fire companies responded to a total of 60 calls. 29 of them were medical emergencies into town and 5 out of town. And the police department, as I mentioned, the total calls for service last year was 13,090 calls. And for the month of January, we were about 933. So maybe about 80 less this month. But January and February, thank God, seem to be slower months for us. Also, too, I'd ask council on motion 7 to authorize the hiring of John Allen as a part-time police officer, conditional upon him passing physical, psychological examination, and background investigation. I think this officer would be an asset to our police department. Thank you.
Before we get started, I want to introduce Kevin Riley. He's one of our part-time police officers, and someday, hopefully, he becomes a full-time police officer here. And I want to thank, he's not here tonight, and Bill Peasant. You know, everybody talks about raising the bar, raising the bar. I mean, if you look to see what Raising the Bar did this weekend with this chocolate festival they had on Mill Street, they brought in over 300 people into Mill Street. Just think about this, 300 people. When did you ever see Mill Street in February with that many people walking down the street? I mean, I give him a lot of credit, he's very hard-working, dedicated person to this town. And he may drive us nuts at times, but without him, let me tell you something, a lot of this stuff in this town would not get done. So that was a great day for Bristol, and there's so many things that just keep happening in town that I'm just proud to be part of everything that goes on.
So I just wanted to add, obviously I'm biased, and yes, he does drive some of us crazy. But, first of all, I know Christine Bennett was very, she had a lot to offer in so far as the idea, so I know he was appreciating that as well. But, I'm just giving it to you straight as a restaurant owner. In February, as a restaurant owner, the month when, you're just scrapping and crawling to make sure that you're making ends meet, I know I can speak for the Cantina and I can speak for the King George as well, when I tell you we had one of our best days ever on that day. So, if you are, and I'm not talking about, rolling in money, I'm talking about making ends meet, you're paying the bills. And so if you are someone that roots for the businesses on Mill Street that are really trying hard to stay open and to do what's best for town, I think you should consider those events as well, because they really are they're a boost for business. And I know all the antique shops were loaded, and it was a really great day, and I could not agree more that everyone in Raising the Bar deserves a lot of credit for that.
Okay. All right, so Anybody have anything else? We get on to our agenda.
I just want to mention, last meeting, the chief had mentioned the problem we're having with Gaudenzia, and I met with the chief after the meeting, and I also brought that up at the Lower Bucks Hospital board meeting, and it's gotten their attention. The chief was notified that the Gaudenzia has a new project director. She's a former New Jersey correctional officer who is now going to work for Gaudenzia, and the hospital's aware of it, and it's really not the hospital that's creating the problem, but they're stepping up to the plate to try to make things, better for how these calls are getting handled and why we're getting so many of them all of a sudden. The chief said he had, in January, I think last year we had a total of 27. In January we had 7, or maybe even more,
Yeah, I
might
think
be
it was,
9.
yeah, somewhere around there.
But I just wanted to let you know that, we're working on that. And one thing I forgot last week, I just wanted to congratulate John Burnett. He's a high school senior who has 100 wins in wrestling. It's the first time in Borough's history that we've had a 100 match winner. So congratulations to John Burnett.
We should probably
Yeah,
bring
we should
him
bring
up
him
here
in.
Yes.
and honor him.
I think he's getting ready, hopefully he goes to regionals and hope he has that arm for being a state champ.
That's right.
I do have other business at the end. I can do it now, or I can wait till the end, whatever you
You can do it now.
I have a question for Mr. Salerno and for the engineers about lighting. It's primarily about the lighting on the NovaCare property, but I just wanted to be able to wrap my head around what our ordinances are, what our laws are about that. Do we have an ordinance pertaining to what kind of lights we're allowed to put in? I don't know the answer, so.
I don't believe we do. The restrictions or guidelines for what you can do and not do in terms of, well, Kurt can explain. It's in our subdivision land development ordinance.
Okay.
Whether we specify, Kurt, why don't you explain what we've done?
Yeah, I don't know off the top of my head whether or not the standards, the adopted standards contain the specific street light. I know that the borough has has used the same street light for a number of years, and it's consistent throughout the borough. So in this particular case, this project too has been around for, a decade or more.
1986.
And I want to say that the first approval required the installation of streetlights. That didn't happen, and then they came in for an expansion, and that's when this all kind of resurfaced. But, so the borough has, not unlike every other, municipality you work in, you have a standard light. And your department heads, like your public works directors, they want to have standardization. So if a light gets damaged, that you could grab a component at the shop and take it out there, and it'll plug right in. Or if you have a knockdown, you can save parts that don't get destroyed, and you can put them in your inventory. So that's basically where this has been stuck for a number of years. I know that the developer wants to use a new substitute light, which has been a topic of discussion, but the council approved the project, and it contained the same light that was part of
So is the hang-up the LED? Is that what the hang-up is? Is it the fixture, or is it the bulb, for lack of a better word?
Well, I think it's the components itself. I mean, right now the borough uses a high-pressure sodium. That's its standard. If the borough were to opt to go in a different direction and use LEDs, I know that there's some other considerations like the color that it emits. We'd want to make sure that it is the same, so you don't have all yellow lights and one bright white one sticking out, that type of stuff. But
So the HPS, is that standard? You're saying it's standard in Bristol Borough? Is that what you mean by that, or do you mean?
Yes.
So I'm just trying to understand as a council person, not at all saying that you guys aren't going by the code. I'm saying, do we need to change that? Because to me, it doesn't make much sense for us to be mandating that an old technology be put in when there are newer, and correct me if I'm wrong, but when there are newer, better technologies available, I would imagine any developer would want to put in a more energy efficient, cost efficient light. And as long as it can match, obviously, the style that we're looking for, I'm just not quite understanding why we can't do that. So I know you said that, like George, for instance, would obviously, it could cause a problem there. So our agreement with Bernard is that he'll put them in and the borough will maintain.
Is that, yeah, I'm trying to remember, some years ago, but I think Amanda's shaking her head, that's what we think the,
So basically our position is that developer is doing a project, agrees to put in new lights, that he's got to put in an older technology. I mean, is that our position? Is that what we have given to you guys as basically our position as a council, that we should be putting in older technologies?
I don't know.
I'm just saying, I
Yeah,
don't want to handcuff you guys to do what I think makes sense, right? To put in a newer technology LED bulb.
We've
I don't-
just done it.
I don't wanna-
Throughout town, we did it all
Like you said,
Path and-
this was, when it got approved, that was the light
Sorry,
that
I'm
the
sorry.
borough used, and it's been that way. If you're bringing up, that maybe the council has an interest in changing, I mean, that's.
Well, that's what I'm saying. What can we do? I am not at all, what's that?
There's another issue besides the light. It's the fixture.
Well, that's what I was
Borough's
asking.
fixture is a Spring Lake,
Spring City?
Spring City, it's a cast aluminum, it's top of the line fixture, and because I looked into them one time, and, there's cheaper fixtures out there that look the same.
So you're saying he's putting in too expensive of a fixture?
No, I'm not saying, I don't think he put anything in yet. I think one of the questions brought up in the past was, there's fixtures that are cheaper than Spring City. But
Yeah,
then again,
does
you
Spring
don't
City
have
make
this.
an LED?
I thought.
That's what we want.
Now, again, correct me if I'm wrong, because, I know that this has been a ongoing struggle for all of us. My understanding is that the fixture part of it had been worked out. Am I wrong about that? Is that the fixture part, not the light part?
I know, this has been a few years now since we've really gone through all the details of this, but I do believe Spring City might make an LED fixture.
Okay.
That would, in theory, I believe, like I said, match the borough current standard fixture. As I recall, I think Bernard was suggesting to use a different manufacturer also. So whether that has changed since that conversation a few
A
years ago.
different manufacturer than Spring
Spring City,
City.
correct.
So you believe that there is a fixture from Spring City that would meet the standards?
I can
Probably,
check
I won't
into
hold
it.
you to that,
Right,
but,
I think there was.
okay.
The only thing I want to say is that I'm not against LED, believe me. There's two ways, you got to look at it two ways. There's an LED bulb and there's an LED fixture. If you use an LED fixture and it goes bad, you throw the whole fixture away, you got to buy a new one. Use an LED bulb, the bulb goes bad, you got to replace the bulb. Right now, I don't think that they make a bulb, and I don't know if you guys know, correct me if I'm wrong, that a street light right now, our street lights cannot take LED fixtures or bulbs. They don't make anything that would accommodate an overhead light. They'll make streetscaping lights, which is what you're trying to do. But you got to make sure that if the borough is going to be responsible for this, are we putting in a fixture that has a bulb that we just change? Are we putting a fixture in that you need to change the entire fixture, which can cost us $1,000, $1,500 to change versus going and buy a bulb that may be $50?
I understand, I totally
So
understand.
they're all the things, and like I said, we should just sit down at a work session and figure this out. And if we need to change the ordinance, we can.
Yeah, and I just, again, please, everyone involved know that I know how challenging this project has been on many sides. We've been fighting the fight from the beginning, trying to help everyone kind of come to a place where we can have normal conversations about it. And I think we've come a long way. And I would hate to see this project hung up over something that is our doing, in the sense of, when I say our, I mean our. Meaning that, like, are our ordinances antiquated? Do we need to fix them? And if we do, I would like to do that so that we don't run into minor issues, in my opinion, in the grand scheme of a project. And, I mean, I have this whole email that a lighting consultant sent me from the company. Now, again, be honest, I didn't ask what the company's name was, so I will certainly ask that. But the lighting consultant sent me about the technology of HPS, and how antiquated it really is, and how most people are getting grants to even just change those out in lieu of a new energy source, and a more efficient source. So I just want to make sure that we are where we need to be insofar as the modernization of our own ordinances, so.
It sounds like you might recommend that you consider then, we could reach out to the lighting reps from Spring City and see
Yeah.
what available products they have, see what kind of,
Okay.
retrofits they might have, what kind of options they might have going forward, and then come back, with that
Got it.
information for the
That's
council.
good.
So one direct way to go is to say Spring City. Start there, right? Spring City, like,
Well, you probably want to start, if all the lights are that manufacturer, you probably want to start with them. There's other companies that make a competitive product to Spring City, Hadco. I mean, they duplicate, these guys cast and duplicate lights.
okay.
But you want to make sure that it's the same specs, so you're not getting an inferior.
Well,
product.
as always, I think we've solved these things the best in the past when we just get everybody into a room and hash it out. So, if we can do that in the near future, I'll find out about Spring City, and I'll find out about that kind of stuff to this point. But if we can just sit down and figure out where the disconnect is, and if it's something we need to do, we'll do it, I hope. If it's something that he needs to do, then we'll make it clear to him that it's something he needs to do. If we could do that in the near future, I'd appreciate it.
If you could, when you're doing this, gather this information, can we get someone in addition to Spring City? If there's and it's not that we have to use it, I'm just thinking that if we can offer, if somebody's doing some project in town, and they want to put lighting on their parking lot or whatever, or in front of their house, if there's a cheaper alternative that looks like Spring City. I mean, Spring City's it's a beautiful fixture, but it's top of the line, so.
We've worked with other vendors in the past, like I said, they literally will duplicate the castings. They'll go out and they'll cast aluminum, cast iron, they'll make a mold, and they'll duplicate it. Like PennDOT, for instance, when you put a job out at the state level, you put out 3 equal products. You can't just sole source a proprietary. You can, you have to put in a special request, but, so, Hadco and Hapco have been duplicating the Spring City product. So we could look at at those and see if they have, that keeps everybody kind of,
Let's
yeah.
just see if there's something else out there. Because if we accept Bernard's lighting, I thought we were just accepting it as part of our street lighting program. Cost of the electricity. I didn't think that we were assuming the responsibility if somebody in the parking lot bangs into his light fixture. I don't think we should be worried about replacing that.
And I can't remember the exact arrangement.
I
I know
don't
that
either,
those
to be honest.
lights are being used to illuminate the parking lot also. So they're not just the street lights,
Yeah.
they're also
Yeah, that's what I
parking
mean.
lights.
So
So there's
I
some,
thought we were kind of picking up the tab for
yeah.
the power, but not so much
I can
the
check.
picture. So if you can check that out. And this way we can find out if there's other.
Well, I think, Louis, if we're changing the ordinance, I think we need to look at the whole thing and
Yeah.
put a whole, maybe on issues like this, the lighting goes back to the responsibility of the owner, unless they're on a main, like, for instance, Grundy's gonna spend millions of dollars to renovate the library, and we've been meeting with them. They're gonna do all new lights down Ratcliffe Street, all new trees. I mean, who's gonna be responsible then? The borough shouldn't be responsible for that. That should be Grundy's responsibility to maintain all these fixtures.
But to Kurt's point, though, again, it's been so long, I don't quite remember, but I believe we mandated that these lights go in so that
That was way before we even got here.
Right, I'm just saying that
Right.
this is a responsibility of his. It's not like it's not as if he's doing it for just the decorative
No,
value.
I understand.
He has to do it. And so it's a matter of,
And like I said, I don't have a problem with LED. I think we need to look at this whole thing.
yeah.
All right?
Okay, thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Anybody else have anything? Okay, Herbie, do you have anything?
No.
Number 3 on the agenda.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to accept the council meeting minutes for December 3rd, 2019. Who's that banging?
It sounded like a gavel.
January 6th, 2020. February 3rd, 2020, to accept the treasurer's report for October and November 2019, to accept the police and the DJ's report for December 2019 and January 2020, to accept the fire chief's report for December 2019 and January 2020, to accept the inspection department report for December 2019 and January 2020, to accept the public works department report for November and December, January 2019 and January 2020.
I have a second by Ms. Rodriguez. Questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Number 4.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to authorize advertisement of an ordinance to install a stop sign on West Railroad Avenue at Old Route 13 and a stop sign on West Railroad at Otter Street.
Second by Mr. Gorman. Questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Number 5.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to authorize the repair of the street sweeper per U.S. municipal quote dated 1/16/2020 in the amount of $18,241.21.
Second by Mrs. Cullen. Questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Number 6.
Mr. President, I'd like to authorize advertising of an ordinance restricting parking at 206 Otter Street to 30 minutes Monday through Friday between the hours of 8 a.m. and 5 p.m.
I have a second. Second by Ms. Cullen. Questions or comments? Mr. Gerard.
Yes, I have a comment. I would like to suggest to council that this motion be tabled and sent to the zoning board, and here is why. The neighbors would be notified by writing in public postings what is happening in their neighborhood. The neighbor that is requesting the changes would have to attend the meeting and state their case. The neighbors would then have a chance to either say, we agree or disagree. I think it's a fair system. Sorry. I don't think it's right that Dave Gerard from Corson Street, or Mr. DiGiuseppe from Lafayette Street, or Greg Pezza from Coolidge Street at the other end of town should be telling Otter Street what is good for them. The argument that we have the right as elected officers might be true, but as elected officers, we also have a duty to do what is fair. And the other comment I have, Mr. DiGiuseppe, is last week you compared Garden Street with Otter Street, and I disagree with that comparison. Over on Garden Street, the restrictions were put into place to help. Out-of-towners were parking on Garden Street to catch the train, and the Garden Street restrictions forced these out-of-towners to park in the Amtrak parking lot so that the local residents could park in front of their houses. The exact opposite is true with Otter Street. The locals are being told to park somewhere else, while council is supporting a private business. That's all I got.
Okay, so
Can I get a second on that?
are you saying you want to make a motion to table?
Yes.
Because everything stops.
Yes,
So
I'm
are you
making a motion to table that
There's a
motion.
motion on the floor to table. Do I need a second or no? We just vote. Vote. All right. There's a motion on the floor to table. All in favor to table? Against the table?
4.
Okay, so motion is
Can I have a roll
denied.
call vote, please?
Already was denied, but I'll give him a roll call vote, Mr. Dillon. Yes?
Can I make a comment?
Yes? Well, everything has to stop. Yes means the table, no is no table.
Mr. Gerard,
Yes.
Mr. Devine is absent. Mr. Pezza,
No.
Ms. Cullen,
No.
Ms. Rodriguez,
No.
Mr. Gorman,
No.
Mr. Quattrochi,
No.
Mr. DiGiuseppe.
No. Motion denied. Mrs. Rodriguez.
Now, I just understand where Dave is coming from, but as a Westward council person who lives around the corner from Otter Street, I've gone to this area many a times, especially starting 4 years ago when Mr. Riccio seemed to have a problem with it. And the parking spots that are there, it's only between 8 and 3. There's ample parking spots for everyone in the residence in that area, and I know most of the people there personally. And when you get home from work after 5, there's plenty of parking spot and you can park there. So that's all I wanted to say.
The only thing I would like to say, Mr. Gerard, it's not a zoning issue, so we can't make this a zoning issue. We don't have any authority to send this to the zoning board to hear this. And the reason we're here tonight, it's a public meeting, and this is just to advertise the ordinance. If anybody that you know wants to come here and speak on this in March, when we vote on it, they could also show up, and the way they would show up at a zoning meeting, they could show up at a council meeting and voice their opinion.
That would be advertised in the Courier?
With us.
The ordinance?
The ordinance or the meeting?
The advertisement that's going to...
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
Well, they'll probably try to get it in the weekly paper because it'll be much cheaper.
Mr. President.
I would just like to say, I mean, we just alluded to it here. First of all, I just wanted to make it clear that this is just an advertisement, right? At this point in time.
Authorized.
So, I'm not indicating that I would have supported a table in the vote itself, but especially right now, this is just an advertisement to say this is something that could possibly be happening. And secondly, I'd like to say, I think we just should look at all of these cases on a case-by-case basis. I truly do. And I also understand what you're saying, but this is our job as council people, right? I mean, Betty is the West Ward representative, Michael is a West Ward representative. Their advice to us is that this makes sense for their ward. And no, I do not have an intimate understanding of what goes on there, but they do. And so I'm supporting, what the West Ward council people believe to be the best for the West Ward.
Yes, as newly elected, I just wanted to let everyone know that I did check into this, that, as we did, it did not have to go to zoning. It's not a zoning issue. I did go out there several evenings, as a matter of fact, tonight, it being a little bit more of a kind of night where you stay home. And I was able to count on an average, tonight there were 8 spots in that area. In fact, no one was parked in front of Harris's or Hertz, where it seems to be. But throughout the street, there was, on the average of about 8 parking spots. Again, this is an advertisement, it's not a decision. And I just wanted to make that comment. Thank you.
Okay, so let me go back, because Mara, it's been a while. Do we have a motion in a second?
Well, you've had the motion. The second was by Lorraine.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second.
And request
Any other
motion to
comments
table.
on this? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Number 7.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to authorize an increase in the solicitor service fees for the zoning hearing board from $125 per hour to $150 per hour for Barbara Kirk Esquire, letter dated 1/9/2020.
Second by Mr. Gorman. Questions or comments? All those in favor? Dave?
Yeah, comment. Because of our financial obligations, and I'm sure Mrs. Kirk deserves this raise, but I'm going to be very conservative, and just that, after our meeting last week, all of our obligations that we have coming up. So just want council to be aware of that.
Just so you know, Mr. Gerard, that people post money to go to the zoning board. So it's very rare that we're using tax dollars to pay for the solicitor unless these hearings just run way over.
All right, thank you for that
And
information.
I-
Thank you. Okay, very
All right.
good.
Just so you know, there are times that we do, but, if there's 3 hearings, everybody's posting, what is it, $250 now to go to zoning? So
Thank you.
usually we're covered.
Got it. That covers it. Thank you.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion
Mr.
carries.
President, I'd like to make a motion to adopt an ordinance for a motion to amend ordinance 15-205 to change the length of the one-way traffic on Adams Street.
Second by Mr. Pezza. Questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Number 9.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to authorize hiring of John Allen as a part-time police officer conditioned upon passing a physical, psychological examination and background investigation.
Second by Mr. Catroci. Questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any other new business?
I'd like to make a motion to suspend the rules to add an agenda item.
There's a motion on the floor. Second by Mr. Catroci. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Mrs. Rodriguez.
Okay. I'd like to make a motion to lay off 5 part-time positions as of March 27th, 2020. That's the part-time office clerk, the part-time code enforcement officer, the part-time parking enforcer, the part-time street and highway employee, and the part-time animal control officer.
Do I have a second? Second by Mr. Gerard. Questions or comments? Mrs. Cullen. I think we're all going to comment, so
Yeah, I think so.
why don't we just start with you, Lorraine, and we'll go through everybody.
I can tell you that I'm not in favor of a layoff, but we've been forced to do so by the union, and it's very upsetting because, first of all, these part-time employees are a necessity here in town, and I just don't think it's right, but we have to, our hands are tied, and it's got to happen.
Greg.
Yeah, I reiterate what Lorraine said. This is very upsetting. These are people I know and like and think they do a really, really good job. And it was either do this or face the lawsuit that was rendered before us. And I would like to say, as a union member myself, I do understand to a degree the position of the union. However, we are a town that is 1 square mile. We know each other. We're friends with each other, and it's just disappointing that this line was drawn in the sand, because, I think everyone acknowledges that we're short-staffed, and everyone acknowledges that our budget is what it is, and we're trying to do what's best for the residents of the borough when it comes to services that we're offering, and this will certainly hamstring that, but more importantly, it will send 5 really good people and 5 really good employees home that we're just, none of us are really happy about, but we're forced to do. I'm going to read a letter just so the people understand what we've been trying to do in this conversation. And this is from our labor attorney to the leadership of the union. It's to a gentleman who I won't name, but he's not part of our local union here. He's from the United Auto Workers Local 1612, who represents our local union. This letter follows my letter sent to your attention via email on February 3rd, 2020. I have not heard back from you. Please be advised that council met in executive session to discuss this matter last week and gave serious consideration to the circumstances discussed during the meeting with you and the union and borough officials on January 22nd, 2020. I inquire whether you have had time to confer with the union members about my letter. It is my belief that Borough Council may likely decide against hiring the following part-time employees on a full-time basis and terminate their employment pursuant to the union's demands. And it goes on to list the positions that Ms. Rodriguez already stated. Kindly acknowledge receipt of my letter. I look forward to hearing from you before the council meeting scheduled for Monday, February 10th, 2020. Very truly yours, Mr. Gerber, our labor attorney. And I believe that we got no response.
Right. Mr. Gerard.
Yeah, I can't argue with Lorraine and Greg or anybody on council. Nobody on council wants to lay these part-timers off. Our hands are forced, and this is what it comes down to. But we're not happy about it. This is something that we, as a council, do not want to do.
Louis.
I sat on the negotiation team that negotiated with the union for the non-uniformed employees. And we got to the 11th hour, we thought we had this all resolved, and all of a sudden they said, we agree with everything except the part-time issue, we're taking that off the table. We said, if that's the only way you're going to agree, then so be it. And we have negotiated in good faith through the whole thing. For them to now charge us with an unfair labor practice really doesn't seem, it's not fair to us, and it's not fair to the 5 people that are affected by this. These are 5 people that, have done a good job for the borough. I wish we could resolve this, and I hate to see this action happen, but it's out of our control. We can't turn around and balance a budget with 5 new employees, full-time employees, that is.
Again, just to reiterate, and I agree with everyone and the compassion and the loss, but even more so, I see that this is something that we really need. We need these people to make this engine run, and it's really a shame that we're being forced, not a shame, it's a farce that we're being forced into this. Being new to it and trying to learn it, but hopefully, perhaps, we'll hear something back. We've reached out twice to hear back from the union leader, and we haven't, so perhaps there'll be something that will develop, but it's the last thing I want to see happen.
Betty?
Yeah, like Dave said, our hands are forced, and these people do excellent work for the borough. They not only help us, but they help the people of the town, and it's disheartening to have to tell these people that on a certain date they might not be here anymore, but what else can we do? We cannot afford any more lawsuits.
So just to give you my opinion on the whole thing, this is probably the worst vote that I had to make in 19 years, because we have 5 good people here, and Mara is one of them. It's a shame that she has to lose her job, and she's thrilled with working here 4 days a week. She doesn't want to work 5 days a week. I don't know of any union that doesn't allow 0 part-timers working anywhere. I mean, we have them in our school districts. We have 7, we could have up to 7 in our police department. The police department said, you could hire up to 7 part-time employees. We tried to negotiate this, like Louis said, for 2 years, and it held up the contract. Finally, we said, you know what? You want to abide by the contract. It says you're allowed seasonal or summer help with the union's approval. This isn't something we want to do, and I know we need them, but I think the union is taking a position where you either hire or fire. They told us as of August 31st, you had to send everybody home. We send back a response to them. We are not sending anybody home, because these people depend on this job, and their family depends on the position they have. That came and went, and then in January, we received another letter they filed an unfair labor practice that they want us to send everybody home December something, I forget what it was, Joe, 31st. And we said, we're going into Christmas and all that, we're not, laying anybody off. So we had a meeting, I think, 2 weeks ago, myself, Mr. Catroci, Mrs. Rodriguez, with 2 borough union reps and the rep for the union. And it was discussed at that meeting that we had to hire or we had to lay them off. There were no other options. Mr. Gerber said, can we carve these 5 people out? Let's sit down and try to work it out. Absolutely not. Hire or fire. So I think that all 8 councilmen, I know Mr. Devine's not here tonight, but all 8 councilmen agreed last week in executive session that if we couldn't work this out by tonight, that we would have to take this unfortunate position. And again, like I said, it's sad to do this, but I think we have no other choice, because if we don't do it, we're going to have to use taxpayers' money to fight this unfair labor practice. So we'll just have to figure out how we're going to get by, and I'm sure it'll work out eventually. But again, I know nobody's sitting here wanted this to happen, but I think our hands are tied and we have to make a decision tonight. Does anybody else want to comment on
I
anything?
just wanted to reiterate that, I think Betty said it, but I don't remember of the timing. How much time between,
Well, we're giving them 6 weeks
March 27th.
to try to find a job, and once we lay them off, they're eligible to collect. So hopefully that, they find something in the 6 weeks, but, we may hire, but it may not be these 5 people. We don't know what we're going to do. But one thing I can tell you is that this council's united on not being pushed into a corner. So, with that, all in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. I get a motion to adjourn by
Motion to
Mrs.
adjourn.
Collins, second by Mr. Gerard. Meeting adjourned.